He wasn't supposed to move, not with Secret Service already in place, not with cameras nearby, not with the convoy standing less than 5 feet away. But when a black SUV tore into the palace alley and 3 masked men grabbed Donald Trump by the arm. When they started dragging him toward the open door, Sergeant Rowan Hale didn't ask for orders. He ran through the chaos, through the bodies, through the ambush like a wall of iron. And by the time the last attacker hit the stone, Trump wasn't just rescued, he was staring at the only man who never blinked. Before we show you how the guards stopped an entire extraction squad with 0 bullets fired, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Tap like, hit subscribe and ring the bell icon, because this story doesn't end where you think it does. The service wing of Buckingham Palace rarely drew attention. No grand arches, no velvet carpets. Just a narrow, cobbled alley between sandstone walls where trucks offloaded catering crates and palace aides passed quietly with clipboards tucked beneath their arms. It was the kind of place that looked like nothing, and that was exactly the point. Hidden in plain sight, reserved for logistics, not politics. The sky above was the usual London grey, not storming, not clear, just a slow, heavy overcast that made the brass buttons on the guards' tunics gleam flatter than usual. There was a breeze, but not enough to move the flags, just enough to carry sound further than it should have gone. Sergeant Rowan Hale stood at the edge of the East Service Gate, half-shadowed beneath the overhang of a support column. His rifle was secured across his chest. His posture straight, not rigid, but set with the kind of stillness that took years to master. He didn't move, he didn't blink. He watched. Hale was Coldstream, 10 years in, most of them spent on high-clearance posts. Known for being the kind of soldier who noticed things others didn't. Not because he was gifted, just because he paid attention. That morning, he'd skimmed the palace logistics briefing without needing to take notes. He already knew which gates were active, which vehicles were cleared, and which VIPs were expected through which corridor at which exact time. At precisely 2:13 p.m, the motorcade arrived, 6 vehicles total. The middle one, a matte black Chevrolet Suburban, rolled to a stop with a soft rumble that echoed through the alley's close stonework. The passenger door opened. Donald Trump stepped out, squinting as if the air itself had insulted him. He adjusted his red tie, already scowling, and swatted away the waiting hand of his lead Secret Service agent. "I said, I don't need help. Get out of my way." The agent stiffened, but obeyed, stepping back. Another man behind him, earpiece in place, quickly surveyed the alley. Hale didn't react. His eyes moved, but his body didn't. Trump looked irritated, restless, like he'd been told to wait longer than he liked. His footsteps were hard on the cobblestones, and his muttering barely masked his frustration. That was when Hale felt it. Not saw, not heard, felt. A faint tremor in the air. Somewhere at the far end of the alley, a low engine revving, one that shouldn't have been there. Sergeant Rowan Hale didn't look toward the sound. He didn't need to. The echo off the sandstone told him everything. The alley behind the East Logistics wall was restricted, an architectural dead end that looped behind the old staff canteen and out to the maintenance lane. Only scheduled service vans ever passed that way. And the sound coming now? Not a van, not even close. It was low, growling, the kind of torque-heavy idle you only heard from tuned engines or city SUVs in a hurry. Hale's gaze stayed fixed on the main corridor, but his left hand shifted subtly along the base of his rifle, 1 inch, nothing more. The black SUV appeared 3 seconds later. It rolled into view like it belonged there. Windows dark, body spotless, license plate streaked with just enough grime to distort the numbers. It moved slow, purposeful, as if it was trying not to draw attention, while demanding it anyway. Hale's mind moved ahead of the moment. No such vehicle had been listed on the perimeter manifest. Not for this hour, not for this gate. There were no secondary escorts authorized for the American diplomatic party beyond the suburban convoy. And nothing was cleared to approach from that rear flank during active transition. He pressed the radio mic on his collar. Once short burst. Post echo reporting unscheduled vehicle approaching East Alleyway. Black SUV. No decals, no ID. Awaiting instruction. Silence on the other end for a moment. Then a clipped response. Copy that, post echo. Cross-checking vehicle manifests. Stand by. Hale never got to hear the rest, because the SUV's engine kicked. One sudden surge. It lurched forward, cutting the corner tighter than necessary. The driver wasn't waiting for clearance. He wasn't even pretending to look for it. And then, mid-motion, both rear passenger doors began to open. Not fully, just slightly. Like a hand reaching for a doorknob, waiting to yank it wide. Hale didn't move yet. His training wouldn't let him. But in that frozen beat, his eyes locked onto Donald Trump, still scowling, still walking, still unaware that something was approaching from behind him with impossible precision. The SUV straightened, and that's when it picked up speed. It happened faster than any drill. The SUV's tires shrieked as it launched down the alleyway, rubber peeling off wet stone, its engine roaring like something meant for a battlefield. Before anyone had time to shout, both rear doors flew open. 3 masked figures leapt out, black jackets, tactical boots, unmarked gloves, moving with violent precision, not running wild, not scrambling, executing. Trump turned at the sound, brow furrowed, mouth half open to yell, but one of the attackers was already on him. "Hey, get your hands off me!" Trump bellowed, voice slamming against the stone walls like a gong. He shoved backward, elbow flailing, but it didn't matter. One man had gripped his upper arm. Another caught the edge of his blazer and began dragging him toward the SUV like a sack of weight. Secret Service agents whipped around, but they were boxed in by the alley's narrow curve. 2 of them were still near the 3rd vehicle in the convoy, and the lead agent, mid-radio call, was a full 5 meters ahead. One of the attackers raised something in his hand, a collapsible baton gleaming in the dim light. He swung it toward the nearest agent's side. A dull crack followed. The agent buckled. The back of Trump's shoes scraped against the stones. His voice cracked from shouting. "You're going to regret this. Get your hands off!" They ignored him. A 3rd figure emerged from the SUV's passenger side, bigger, faster, directing the others with short hand signals. He pointed to the rear seat. The men began forcing Trump toward the open door, their bodies half shielding him from view, one hand already reaching to cover his mouth. There was no shouting from them, just pressure, motion, ruthless quiet. Hale moved, not a step, a launch. His boots slammed off the edge of the column as he broke into a dead sprint, the weight of his rifle shifting fluidly across his chest. He didn't wait for orders, didn't shout a warning. He'd seen enough. The angle, the formation, the way they moved, it wasn't intimidation. It wasn't chaos. It was a planned extraction, and they were seconds from completing it. As Hale closed the distance, one attacker turned to look back. Just in time to see a royal guard tearing through the alley like a battering ram in crimson. There was no ceremony to it, no choreographed draw of weapon or command barked into the air, just a soldier moving like the rules had been stripped away. Sergeant Rowan Hale thundered across the alley, each footfall exploding off the walls. His boots slammed into the stone with the force of a war drum, rifle slung tight against his chest, left hand shifting down the strap for leverage. The first attacker turned too late. Hale's shoulder hit him square in the torso, driving the man backward like a steel piston. The impact was sickening. Bone met metal as the man's spine slammed against the SUV's rear door, denting it inward with a loud metallic crunch. The attacker collapsed immediately, groaning, air gone from his lungs. Trump stumbled sideways, free from their grip for half a second. He twisted his ankle, trying to regain footing. The second man raised his arm, trying to swing the baton upward, but Hale was already pivoting. With a brutal economy of motion, he rotated into a strike, bringing the butt of his rifle across the attacker's forearm. A loud crack split the alley. The baton clattered to the ground, and the man screamed, clutching his arm as he dropped to one knee. The third, bulkier figure, the one calling signals, lunged forward with a punch aimed straight for Hale's face. Hale didn't dodge. He stepped into it. Using his forearm, he deflected the blow, redirected the momentum, and then drove his shoulder into the man's chest, lifting and shoving him across the stone like a sled. The attacker slammed into the side wall, shoulder first, and slid to the ground. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Only calibrated force, measured for compliance, not destruction. Behind him, Trump gasped, off balance, eyes wide, as he realized what had just happened. His voice broke as he pointed toward Hale. "They tried to shove me in the car. He stopped. The words failed him. Because Hale was already turning back toward the SUV, scanning for a fourth man, rifle held low, muzzle down, but his stance read one message only: "You will not pass me." From the alley's far edge, 2 Secret Service agents closed in, calling Hale's name, rushing to secure the suspects. But the guard didn't move. His chest heaved once, twice. Then he shifted his boots to form a stable triangle between Trump and the vehicle. He hadn't just stopped the attack, he had broken it. The alley echoed with the scrape of boots and panicked breathing. One attacker was already on the ground, writhing near the rear bumper. Another clutched his wrist, struggling to push himself upright. But the fourth, previously unseen, emerged from the SUV's front passenger door. He was fast, no mask, close-cropped hair, a scar bisecting one eyebrow. In one fluid motion, he drew a steel baton from under his jacket and sprinted toward Hale's back. Hale turned at the last second. The baton came down hard, angled toward Hale's collarbone, but the guard didn't flinch. He caught the descending arm mid-strike, twisting it sharply, driving the man's momentum into a pivot that turned his own weapon against him. The baton slipped, struck the pavement, and bounced toward the wall. The attacker didn't go down, but he was stunned. Hale dropped his rifle against his chest, letting the strap hold it flush to his armor, and switched to hand. He stepped forward, close range, using elbow blocks and heel turns, redirecting each of the man's wild swings. It wasn't choreography. It was trained instinct, tight, efficient, and brutal. The attacker lunged low, attempting to tackle Hale at the waist. Bad choice. Hale stepped aside and shoved the man's neck downward with the palm of his gloved hand, planting him face first into the stone. The man crumpled, stunned. Behind them, Trump stumbled back against the convoy vehicle, muttering, "What the hell is going on? Who are they? How the—" One of the initial assailants tried again, recovering from the side, clutching a folding knife now pulled from his boot. He moved toward Hale's flank. Hale heard him before he saw him. He pivoted, grabbing the man's wrist mid-swing, twisting it with a torque that made ligaments scream. The knife dropped instantly. Hale used the man's own body weight to drive him backward against the SUV, pinning him with an arm across the chest. "Don't move," Hale said sharply. The attacker froze. Still breathing hard, Hale turned his body again, now aligned fully between Trump and the attackers. 4 of them, one semi-conscious, one pinned, one face down, one clutching his arm, breathing through his teeth, and not a single shot fired. No sirens yet, just the aftershock of explosive precision. From behind, a Secret Service agent reached for Trump and pulled him into a secure corner of the alley. "Sir, we need you behind the vehicle now." Trump didn't resist, but he didn't speak either. He just stared at the Royal Guard standing at the center of the ruined ambush like a statue built for war, still, silent, one boot planted just ahead of the other, as if daring anyone to rise again. Hale didn't speak. He didn't have to. The alley held its breath. The 4 attackers, once synchronized, fast and ruthless, were now scattered, broken across the stone like fallen chess pieces. The one pinned against the SUV by Hale's forearm let out a rasping wheeze, clearly injured but still conscious. Another was curled on his side, near the drainage gutter, holding his arm at a strange angle. The third was sprawled near the front tyre, blinking up at the grey sky. The fourth, the one face-planted into the pavement, was no longer moving. But then one of them tried to run. The man with the scar across his brow, dazed but mobile, scrambled to his feet and bolted toward the alley mouth. He ran hard, desperate, shoulder tucked as if ready to barrel through anyone in his path. Hale took one step forward, raised a single arm and called out, "On the ground, now!" His voice was not loud, it was not panicked. It simply cut through the alley like a command issued by law itself. The man stopped mid-stride. Something in Hale's tone short-circuited his plan. He glanced back once, saw Hale's stance, square and rooted, and without another word, dropped to his knees and placed his hands on the stone. No one else moved. No one dared. Secret Service agents finally swarmed the area, 5 of them fanning out to cuff, search and contain the men. But the chaos had already passed. The Royal Guard had ended it before they arrived. Trump, now pulled safely behind the Suburban, was still breathing heavily. His suit was creased, his shirt collar askew, one sleeve slightly torn where he'd been grabbed. His face was flushed, not with exertion but disbelief. He looked toward Hale again. Standing there, rifle secured but untouched, posture settled like a sentinel chiselled from the palace walls themselves. The SUV's rear doors remained open, abandoned. The engine sputtered once, then died. It was over. No one had gotten away. No one had been shot. No blood pooled on the stone. But the air was heavy with the weight of what almost happened. And the only reason it hadn't? A single guard who moved before permission and made sure the ground still belonged to the Crown. Trump stood against the rear wheel of the Suburban, chest rising fast beneath his suit, one hand braced on the vehicle's frame like it was the only thing holding him upright. His face was flushed, part confusion, part disbelief. His tie was askew, the red silk twisted off-centre. A single dark smudge streaked his shirt sleeve where one of the men had grabbed him. He didn't speak for a full 10 seconds, just stood there, staring at the back of the Royal Guard, who had stopped it all. I could have been in that car, he muttered finally, mostly to himself. They were dragging me in. One of the Secret Service agents crouched beside him, speaking quietly into his shoulder mic. Another was checking his arm for bruising, but Trump waved him off. "No, I'm fine. They didn't hurt me. He stopped again, swallowed hard. Ahead of them, Sergeant Hale hadn't moved. His rifle was still slung. His feet still planted. His breath slowed but steady. The crimson of his tunic was smudged slightly at the shoulder, where he'd collided with the SUV door. Rain had begun to whisper against the stone, soft and uneven. Hale didn't flinch. Trump's voice dropped to a near whisper. "He moved before any of you." The lead Secret Service agent, still visibly rattled, didn't argue. He just nodded once. "Yes, sir." No praise followed, no handshake, no performance. Just a flicker of eye contact between 2 men, one who had nearly been taken, and one who had made sure that didn't happen. Trump looked back toward the attackers. 2 now restrained with flex cuffs, one on a stretcher, one still face down with a knee between his shoulder blades. They weren't speaking. None of them. The SUV doors had been shut by the agents, but the air still carried the heat of rubber and fuel. Hale finally shifted. Not much. Just a reset of his feet. A small adjustment to his grip. Not one word spoken. Not one nod given. Because to him, it wasn't over. Not until every piece was accounted for. Within minutes, the alleyway transformed. First responders from Palace Internal Security arrived in dark utility jackets, moving without sirens, just radio coordination and soft boots on old stone. Their expressions were focused, unhurried. This wasn't panic, it was containment. Each attacker was separated, documented, and cuffed with zip restraints. One officer began marking scuff points on the cobblestones with chalk, while another photographed the SUV's exterior. Its rear panels bore the dents from Hale's impact, and one mirror hung askew, torn loose in the struggle. A third responder stood near the back of the vehicle, cataloguing contents as items were carefully removed. A burner phone, battery detached, a folded route map of the palace's back corridors. Zip ties, a sealed medical mask with traces of solvent still visible on the filter lining. Nothing flashy, no conspiracy fodder, just tactical gear, enough to suggest intent, enough to make it clear this wasn't random. Trump, still under light guard, leaned slightly forward, watching as the phone was bagged. "That was going to be me in the back of that thing," he said. His voice wasn't angry now, just cold. Sergeant Hale, standing nearby, didn't respond. He had resumed his position several feet behind the activity, present, alert, but uninvolved in the cleanup. His job had been to stop the breach. The rest belonged to procedure. A uniformed palace security chief approached him, late 50s, trim, a laminated tablet tucked beneath one arm. "You initiated interception without radio clearance," he said flatly. "Why?" Hale didn't blink. "Observed attempted forced extraction of a foreign dignitary, perimeter violation, close-range contact, immediate threat." The officer held his gaze for a moment, then gave a single nod. "Good call." Another officer called out from the SUV's passenger seat. "Glove box had 2 prepaid toll passes. One's already logged through the South Tunnel checkpoint this morning. They've done a dry run." "Means it was planned," someone said. Trump folded his arms, staring at the alley floor. "They moved like they'd done it before. No shouting, no chaos, just execution." One of the agents near him muttered, "Not good enough to finish it." Trump nodded once. "Because of him." He tilted his chin slightly toward Hale, and for a few long seconds, no one in the alley said a word, just the soft crackle of radios, and a guard standing perfectly still beneath a sky beginning to drizzle. The Secret Service's lead agent didn't say anything at first. He just stood beside the Suburban with his arms crossed, staring at the black SUV like it had personally embarrassed him. Trump, now seated on a transport crate with a water bottle in one hand, let the silence hang for several long seconds before breaking it. "How the hell did they get that close to me?" he snapped. "What were you doing, talking to the air?" The lead agent winced slightly, glanced at Hale, then looked away. "The alley narrowed our access," he said. "We were in transition. And the rear path wasn't marked as active on our—" "I don't care about the alley," Trump cut in. "They had hands on me. Do you understand that? They were dragging me into the back of a car. If he pointed toward Hale, hadn't moved, I wouldn't be sitting here." Hale stood a few meters away, unmoved. He wasn't listening. Not because he didn't hear, but because the conversation wasn't his. One of the younger agents, nervous, mid-30s, cleared his throat and said, "With respect, sir, we didn't see them coming. He did." Trump looked back at Hale again. He moved like a machine. No one replied. Nearby, internal palace security continued their sweep. Another team was photographing the attacker's gloves and boots for any hidden identifiers. One of the men had already been flagged for prior arrest in Rotterdam. Interpol queries were underway, but none of that was what stuck with Trump. He stared down at his hands. Hands that had been gripped, yanked, dragged, and then at the crimson figure still posted near the stone wall. "Why is he not saying anything?" Trump muttered. "Why do they never say anything?" The younger agent replied without hesitation. "Because they don't have to." Trump didn't argue. He just sat there, shoulders sagging under the weight of almost. The inquiry arrived without warning. Just a quiet black sedan pulling into the edge of the alley. No fuss, no flag. From the passenger side stepped a palace liaison officer, crisp in a dark charcoal coat with a slim leather folio under one arm. She didn't approach Trump, didn't pause to acknowledge the chaos. She walked directly to Sergeant Rowan Hale. "Sergeant," she said with calm precision, "I'm here on behalf of the Sovereign's Incident Oversight Office. We're initiating a real-time safeguarding debrief. Do you consent to an immediate account of events?" Hale gave a single nod. "Yes, ma'am." The folio opened. A pen clicked. "State your actions chronologically." Hale's voice was quiet but clear. "Observed unregistered vehicle breaching perimeter route. Reported over comms. Noted acceleration and door movement. 4 subjects exited at speed, engaged with foreign VIP. I moved to intercept. Did you issue verbal commands before engaging? 1. After physical engagement. All prior actions were time-dependent and non-lethal. Did you consider use of firearm? No, Hale said. Proximity too tight. Targets unarmed but coordinated. Force was sufficient to incapacitate without escalation. The officer jotted the details, nodding slightly. Injuries? Minimal, Hale answered. 1 dislocated joint, 1 suspected concussion. No fatalities. No structural weaponry observed. She turned to glance at the SUV. Suspects are detained. Evidence is being sealed. Your restraint is noted for official commendation. I acted to protect the principal, Hale said, not for recognition. She gave a faint smile, professional, almost imperceptible. I'll file the preliminary transcript with the Palace Command Desk by end of day. As she turned to leave, Trump, now standing again, arms folded, called out from several steps away. Hey, what happens now? With them? The liaison turned. They'll be processed through diplomatic security channels. The Home Office has jurisdiction. But the incident will be logged under royal safeguarding breach due to proximity. Trump blinked. Right, but he pointed at Hale. He did more than just safeguard. The liaison's gaze returned to Hale for a brief moment. Yes, she said quietly. He stopped it before it became history. Then she turned and walked back toward her vehicle. Hale remained exactly where he was, watching, waiting, already back in place. Rain had begun to fall in earnest by the time the SUV was fully taped off. Not a storm, just a steady, whispering drizzle that glazed the cobblestones and blurred the alley's harsh edges. One of the younger palace guards jogged past with an umbrella meant for the liaison officer, but she waved it off and disappeared into the back seat of her sedan without a word. The attackers were already gone, transported in separate vans, hooded under heavy jackets, escorted by a mixed team of palace security and British diplomatic protection officers. No media, no photos, just silent transfer, door shut and tyres fading out of earshot. The SUV itself sat dead in the centre of the alley like a forgotten threat. Doors open, rain pooling on the rear floor mats. 1 zip tie still dangling off the handle. Trump had been escorted inside through a private corridor, his security team triple-checking every path, but he'd looked back once, just once, before stepping into the building, eyes on Hale. A nod. Tight, but real. Now the alley was nearly empty. Only Hale remained at the far end, under the edge of the same stone overhang where he'd stood at the start of it all. He hadn't moved much, only enough to keep line of sight on the cleanup. His gloves were wet, his tunic damp from shoulder to cuff. He adjusted the strap of his rifle just slightly, settling it once more into place. Another guard, young, fresh posted, approached from the west gate, slowing as he neared. He looked at Hale like someone might look at a soldier from a legend. You good, sir? Hale didn't answer at first. Then finally low, yeah. The young guard nodded and turned back toward his post, the question answered more by presence than words. From the upper wall, a bell chimed faintly, signalling shift transition. Another hour gone. The rhythm of the palace, undisturbed, but something lingered in the air. Not adrenaline, not ceremony. Stillness, the kind that follows only after something real has happened. Hale's gaze drifted once more to the ground where Trump had nearly been dragged. He didn't replay the moment, didn't relive it. He just remembered it and stood straighter because of it. Because some attacks don't come with fanfare. Some don't come with warning. They come fast, precise, silent. And when they do, you don't wait. You move, you don't shout. You stop it. Then you return to post, because someone has to. What would you have done if you were standing where Sergeant Hale stood? And do you think he broke protocol or fulfilled it in the truest way possible? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. If this story held your attention, make sure to tap like, hit subscribe, and press the bell icon so you never miss the next Royal Guard moment. And if you know someone who should see what real protection looks like, share this video with them right now. Your next Royal Guard videos should be appearing on screen any second. Pick one, and I'll see you tomorrow at the same time with a brand new story.